6 weeks was all it took. 6 weeks of commitment to myself to focus on the areas I chose to improve, and I was able to find the answers I had been seeking to truly start embarking on this new chapter of my life. Transitioning out of a career that has been a part of my life since I was 20 to allow parts of my business that I've been holding back on to finally and fully flourish, and simply to just let them see the light of day was and still is my goal. Wait, you're probably asking, is she quitting again? Is she no longer a TC? Long story short, not quitting, still a TC, but I am realigning my business decisions to match the lifestyle I truly desire. I do encourage you to go listen to episode 11 titled I Quit for more background and context and how I managed the last 5 years of my business after leaving my 9-to-5. So since we got that out of the way, let's get straight into recapping my last 6 weeks and what I learned through my 6-week commitment of intentional and focused effort. Transaction Care, the podcast. Welcome home to the #1 real estate show on the market. I am your host and resident care coordinator, Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lilly. My goal with each episode of Transaction Care is to demystify the business of real estate from my point of view and interviews from other voices within the real estate industry around the world. I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. The power of focused effort is undeniable and will turn your entire life around for the better. I knew coming into the new year things would be different, but again, I was thinking small and safe. TC community, what areas of your life are you living small and safe? I would love to hear from you. DM me at Transaction Care. Let's talk about it. At the top of the year, I had traveled a lot. I was stuck in winter storms, forcing me out of my comfort zone. I partied harder than my 38-year-old self could even handle these days. And through all the fun and memories and new experiences, I still came home empty, unfulfilled, confused more than ever, and honestly, angry. I started to reflect on my life, my career, the choices I had made, and everything I had done up until that point. And like I said, I was unfulfilled, confused, angry, and I knew I had a choice to either remain in this helpless and lost state of mind and listen to the stories I was telling myself, or I can fill my own cup. I can find power in this situation, realign. I could see this as a loss or an opportunity. I chose the latter. What do I really want to do with my career? I needed to get really real with myself and not avoid anything. That's where the 6-week commitment comes into play. I've always been a firm believer in signs and messages and take them very seriously. As I mentioned at the top of the year, it was a mess and I needed to get off of that turbulent ride and find another path. I'm on social media a lot. It's for a mix of reasons: to socialize, to be entertained, to run my business, but the biggest chunk I find myself using it for is escapism. I find myself aimlessly scrolling for no reason. Next thing I know, 2 hours have gone by and I've done nothing. But this particular week, earlier this year, many of the content creators I find interesting, intriguing, influencing are business owners, people I admire and are just inspired by. And this particular week, randomly, many of them were talking about 6 weeks can change your life. It just starts with 6 weeks, right? And the messages to me were loud and clear. And in that moment, and once the count of people on my timeline exceeded 3 people in one day, I knew I had to take action. What was this 6-week thing about? What does this 6-week commitment mean? And why do I keep hearing it loud and clear? Not just on my timeline, but every time I hear it, something in my spirit moves and I'm intrigued. You have my full attention. What is this? What do I do? The start of my year was rocky anyway, so I was ready for a major change. And if that meant having to commit my life for the next 6 weeks to focus on one thing, I was down. I was ready for anything, honestly. Community, again, let me know how you receive messages, signs, or downloads from God and the universe when you are just going through it and you're just in need of anything, something to shift your life. And for me in that moment, my intuition has played a huge role in this whole thing. And I've been very intentional with allowing my intuition to grow stronger as a result of me being present, being still, praying more, and especially eliminating and removing any distractions or forms of escapism. Now it was time to do the real work, get to the root of my anger, my emptiness, and create ways to feel better and show up every day with a stronger, clearer, and fearless action plan. I had to ask myself some tough questions. Shout out to the book Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee Adams. I recently finished reading this book and I reference it very often. Shout out to my coach for recommending it to me. But I want to make a side note real quick. You don't have to read 100 books to improve your life. Sometimes all you need is just that one book to improve and start implementing the tips immediately. So for anyone out there that's not a reader, much like myself in the past, and doesn't know where to start, just find one book to read in a category that you are passionate about or even a person you admire and allow the process to unfold from there. So let's get back to me asking myself some tough questions. So before I kicked off my 6-week commitment, I asked myself the following. What is working? What isn't working? What can I do differently? What can I do more or less of to feel more empowered, productive, fulfilled? Do I still want to do this as my job, as a business? What brings me the most joy about what I do every day? What brings the most resistance or shrinks me? Those were just a few questions I started with, and they were not easy to answer. So if you're out there questioning your career, your life's decisions, maybe your regrets, you're not alone. I'm here with you, still answering these questions, but getting to know yourself takes time. I spent a whole week just marinating on each of these questions. Some of the answers would hit me right away. Some would hit me randomly in the middle of writing an email for my real estate business. Totally unrelated, and I would just stop everything I was doing to purge out my feelings. The point of it all was that it was key for me to get in touch with me today before I moved forward with who I envisioned for the next few tomorrows. This was deeper than I need a new hobby, let me take up sewing, which does sound fun, but it ultimately would still leave me miserable and stuck and in that place of unanswered questions. Once I fully accepted that I was ready to shift gears and focus my energy on other parts of my business, even if they were not making money at the time, I knew it was time to start. So I wrote a commitment letter to myself, along with many prayers, journal entries, talks with friends and family, because we all need our support system. I knew if there were ever a time to go for it and take another leap of faith, it was right now, right now. I broke up the commitment letter into sections: intentions, off limits, milestones, action. Then I signed and dated it at the bottom. It was one page, concise, to the point, just enough to keep me focused on my new lifestyle, implementing what an ideal day in the life would look like for me. And doing that was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. You would think creating your ideal life would come naturally, which was a simple reminder for me to just focus on today. Don't worry about tomorrow. I'm still healing. I'm not perfect, but I know I just have to keep moving forward. So I'm going to read some of my 6-week commitment to you guys. I'm not going to go into full detail of everything I wrote because I do feel like keeping some of this private and just for me is important, but I do want to be as transparent as possible. So if you're out there doing this exercise or feel like you need a 6-week commitment to improve yourself or just elevate and get to that next level of wherever you're trying to get to, this is how I did it. So intentions, pretty straightforward. I wanted everything to be treated like a full-time business. My comfort zone is not comfortable. I am open to receiving money, income, profit. A lot of this is also just affirmations for me to focus on, what I need to do. And just reminders that, I am safe, I'm covered, money is always on the way. As you see, there is a recurring theme with money. At this time, 6 weeks ago, and prior to that, I was just questioning, oh my God, how am I going to make money? If I stop doing transaction coordination full time, how am I going to get money? What am I doing? My reserves aren't that strong right now. In fact, they're depleting very quickly. What am I going to do? So I needed my intentions to be as clear as possible to remind me, I am safe. If all my intentions were just to remember that I am safe, I would have been good. But basically, the intention was to just elevate, enhance, lead with kindness, provide value, be generous, stay humble, and surrender. I tend to want to hold on to a lot of control, and through this whole commitment, this whole exercise, I had to learn how to just surrender and let go. You see that quote, trust the process, a lot. I think this year and the last few months have really shown to me what that means, and I fully embrace trusting the process, because so much of this, all of this is out of our control. Even when I make commitments and even through the past 6 weeks, I'll tell you right now, things didn't go the way I had wanted them to, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to talk about my off limits. This is how committed I was to getting what I needed to get done. I said 6 weeks of sobriety, which meant no haircut until my birthday or milestones are met. Mind you, this is January. My birthday is in April. I usually get a haircut every 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, it's that real. So for me to wait 4 months to get a haircut, hashtag first world problems. But anyway, it's a big deal for me. Getting haircuts, self-care really brings joy to me. So I was sacrificing that to just stay focused and keep my head down and work. Because if I'm in the studio working, why do I need to get a haircut, right? Anyway, so no haircut, no alcohol. I put myself on a travel ban because January I was traveling so much. I think I took 4 trips within a 40-day period. So I was like, no, I got to save my money. I got to get my head right. So no traveling, no social media on Mondays, and no personal social media before 5 p.m. And how I landed on these off-limit things is I asked myself, what are my biggest distractions right now? All right, the haircut was more so of a personal choice, but the alcohol, the traveling, social media, these were things and forms of escapism, as I mentioned earlier, that were taking up a lot of my time, my energy, my emotions were being affected, the lack of sleep and just the different flights I was taking, and some, many of them were on standby, so I was constantly waiting, and I just felt very disconnected from my body, and I had to find a way to get back to me and create more time for myself to feel and hear and see things differently. And going back to social media, I spent so much time on social media, just like I said, aimlessly scrolling with no reason, no purpose. Yeah, some of it was my business, but I really wasn't doing it. And like I was on social media, but there were no results. I wasn't seeing the results I'd wanted. In fact, I didn't even know what results I wanted. I was just on there because I felt like I needed to stay relevant. There was no real purpose. And going back to the episode of the I Quit episode, I talk about I hadn't updated my why in so long. So why I felt so misaligned with myself and just disconnected and angry and frustrated is because I was out of touch with me. I was still operating, from an old version of me. I'm a whole different person, like very different. And if you want more time in your life, do an audit. Like, where am I spending a majority of my time, and where can I shift things around or move some pieces or outsource or ask for help? Or maybe I need more sleep. Maybe I need less sleep, whatever the case. For me, it was traveling and social media. I spent a bulk of my time doing that and avoiding the important things, which brings me to my milestones. So a lot of my milestones here revolved around social media, which ironically, the thing I eliminated was what I was trying to achieve the most. I was like, okay, well, I want to double my subscribers. I want to 10x my podcast downloads. I want to, 3x my closings for my TC business. I want to save 3 to 6 months of reserves, 100 newsletter subscribers, sell this amount of t-shirts in my first week. And at the time of me writing this, I remember saying like, oh, this is going to happen. I got this. I'm on it. But before I started taking action, I didn't really have a good system in place. At the end of the 6 weeks, I was starting to see patterns of my actions. And this was the key part of this whole 6-week commitment, because it wasn't about once I hit, 1,000 subscribers, I made it. I'm on it. I'm good. No, because my actions weren't in alignment with what I was trying to achieve. I was just expecting 1 or 2 videos to do the work for me. Yes and no, that can be the case if I did have a bigger audience possibly, or, getting more streams and viewers. But I'm still at the very bottom of this whole process of being a content creator, of being a YouTuber, a podcast. I'm brand new, and there hasn't been a time until now where I've been this consistent. So as much as I was seeking these numeric milestones, ultimately, what I really needed was to implement 6 weeks of full commitment, desire, fulfilling the desires that I have to be a full-time content creator. And when I go back to saying transitioning out of a career that I've had since I was 20, this is what I mean. Entering into new realms and territories of my business that are so unknown, and the timeline is not in my control. It's all on me to push forward and to make happen and to keep moving. And if I don't upload an episode, if I don't upload clips and promotions, no one's going to know about it. And not just no one knowing about it, but am I even providing value? Because I can easily just throw up a podcast episode, throw up a YouTube video. What is it rooted in? So not only did I have to embrace commitment and ask myself, like, do I really want to do this? And the answer was hell yes. So I was committed. I was fully committed to making this happen. Whether I met these milestones or not, this new 6-week commitment was about me building my life around what I see for myself. If I see myself as a full-time content creator, that's what my day needs to look like. Day and night, weekends, right? It's early, like I said, so I'm probably gonna have to grind a little harder than I would anticipate, but I want to do that. I'm okay with it. I can do this around the clock. I know that's not healthy, but here I am. It's the night before I'm supposed to post this episode, and I'd been working on this for a few hours, but I know I could have easily just abandoned this whole thing and said, hey guys, no new episode this week. But no, I'm committed, and having done this 6-week commitment and it now being over, I made the commitment on January 1st, 2023. Today is March 12th. My 6 weeks actually had ended on March 9th. I'm so grateful I did this. I'm actually working on starting my next commitment in a couple of days, because it wasn't so much about the numbers. And when I look at my results, I doubled my downloads. It wasn't the number I'd wanted to reach, but from when I started in January, 6 weeks later, my downloads had doubled. I realized my TC business wasn't moving and that there was so much resistance and contraction on my part. And I was like, you know what, maybe I'm just not supposed to be doing this at this time. And I want to invest all of this energy I have in this time into areas where I can provide value, but also have fun along the way, which is why I'm doing the podcast. I have the YouTube. I created merch. I'm working on other projects that I'm doing my best to not stand in my way of completing. Because like I said, that self-sabotage, that escapism, insecurity, fear, all of that it's hitting me intensely. But because I've committed to investing more time into improving myself, that it makes it a little easier to move forward nowadays compared to before. I would just ignore my goals completely and just rely on what came easy. Even though it didn't make me happy, transaction coordination was very much my crutch. It was very much that part of my business for me to, it just didn't feel like this was all I was supposed to be doing, which is why I needed this reset, this 6-week commitment, this change to just shift everything. And my results after 6 weeks were great. They weren't the numbers I had set out originally, but I still have time and space to achieve that. And the fact that I pretty much doubled what I set my mind to doing is beautiful. And I celebrate that. And it just proves that 6 weeks of focused effort really can change your entire life. So keep following the journey. Stay along for the ride on this podcast, on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be just expanding and growing and experimenting and trying and taking a lot of risks. And I will be getting that haircut. Stay tuned. Pictures, videos will show proof of my new haircut. Until then, subscribe to my newsletter, head to transactioncare.com. It is the main hub for all of my business ventures, all of the things I have going and growing from this point forward. I'm still doing my TC business, still running the YouTube full-time with the podcast, other forms of creating other streams of income for myself, whether it's through merch, digital downloads, courses, coaching. All of it is here. You just have to stay tuned. Transactioncare.com is my main hub. And truly, all of this to say, you are worth it. You are enough. And you are deserving of the best version of you and life possible. I know I'm enough. I know I'm worthy of that as well. And I am doing everything in my power to make that happen in whatever capacity or whatever form that is at this point in time. But this new chapter, this new phase of my life, it's all about just intentional commitment and focus and effort. I'm just keeping it as simple and fun and creating as much joy for myself as possible, and not focused on the outcome, not focused on the dollar amount, not focused on the number of people, but more so the quality, providing value. So with all of that said, I thank you. This has been another therapeutic episode for me. I hope it resonates with you, the listener, my community. You guys are awesome. Join my TC newsletter, TC Weekly. I drop more news, more updates in there, discounts for my merch as well. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on social media at Transaction Care across all social media platforms. So wherever you're at, I'm there too. So let's connect and keep following the podcast. I would love it if you gave us a 5-star rating and left a review with how you feel about the podcast, good and bad. I need all the feedback I can get. If there are topics you want me to discuss, if there are guests you would like to see on this podcast, let me know. I'm open to having the discussion, talking about all things real estate, business, empowerment. Go back and binge watch some of my previous episodes. They are great. This is only episode 13, so you have only a handful to catch up on. And if you would want to be a guest on the show, DM me, email me, let's talk about it. I'm open. We are learning and growing together. My name is Lily, like the flower. This has been another episode of Transaction Care, the podcast. Until the next episode, care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's coordinate. Talk soon.